do it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, the weed game, like, it allowed me to live like a non 9-to-5 life.
Yeah.
For better part of a decade. And I'm grateful for that. And like, I didn't mind the work, and I made, I was probably making like on average between $400 and $600 a day.
Yeah. It's pretty fucking good.
Yeah. Like hanging with my homies, but like, how are you going to go get a job at Trader Joe's for $12 an hour after you're like used to doing that?
Yeah.
Like the funny money, like kind of messes with, that's what me and my brother call it. Like the funny money. 'Cause it like messes with your, like what you're willing to tolerate, I guess.
Right. Well, I feel that way with music sometimes too.
Yeah.
Because it's like you do a session, you get paid like some sessions you get paid like $100 an hour in a studio, and then like other sessions they're like, okay, come and do this song for $100, and you're like, I'm not, like, it's barely even worth, like, it's barely even worth, like, somebody asked me to do a song for them for $50, and I was like, well, that might get me to like open my violin case and like turn on the computer. And
those are always the ones too where it's like the communication's shitty, and then like you get there and they don't have shit set up, and then you're like it ends up being like a 12-hour session or something.
It's just ridiculous.
It's the same thing with videography as well. Like some like projects pay really well, but when
they're paying less, it's like they don't have their shit together kind of more.
Yeah, there's this funny thing, this guy I worked with who's a little more established than I am, but he was saying like there's like this ratio that it's like 80% of your clients pay you 20% of your income, and then the other 20% of your clients pay you 80% of your income. And it's those 80% of the clients that are like way harder to work with.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it's like part of any artist is like being an artist is like figuring out how to communicate your boundaries and how to like communicate how you value your time and your work.
Yeah.
So that people who actually can afford it can justify it to themselves.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a huge part. But sometimes I shoot myself in the foot if I say too much, if I charge too much, and then they're like, okay, well, we're just going to get somebody else.
Right, yeah.
And then you're like, well, I would still do it. Like, you got to think about like how much you do it for.
Totally.
But like, I'll ask, like, there was one gig they wanted me to do solo, and I was like, I'll charge $1,000. Because I've gotten that before. Or I've gotten even more, like 1,500 or something. And then they didn't respond for a bit, and I was like, hey, just wondering if what you thought about it. I'm down to adjust if you don't think it's good. And they're like, we found somebody for a lower rate.
Right.
And I'm like, oh.
You're like,
literally half of that money would have been fine.
Totally. No, I mean, I think people don't appreciate the haggle, because I've had the same thing where I'm like, look, I'm going to open a little high.
Yeah.
Some people are going to say yes right away. But the intent, like the idea is that you're going to counter.
Right.
So I'm not going to start it. If I want to make $800 for a project or $1,000 for a project, I'm maybe going to quote you at 15.
Totally.
With the idea that you're going to come back at me because you want to work with me.
Right.
But yeah, when you're starting out or when you're like still working out like how to suss people out, I feel like I've certainly lost work because I overbid.
Totally.
And that's like a good lesson, but it's also like we were saying, like, dude, lowballers they don't value the work. Like people that pay more, generally, they're like really going to value your time and what you're doing because they're paying this money for it.
I know, it's an interesting thing. It's like the value for everybody goes way up because they're going to get great work.
Yeah.
But they're also demanding great work because they're putting down all the cash on it. And so they're like, all right, this needs to be actually really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's also like speaking as someone that like I came from, from a family that was right on the poverty line. Like, I never feel justified in asking for what my work is actually worth. Like it feels like I'm asking for too much. Like where my like money sense is calibrated to often is below what the market is actually asking for. And so like you just said, like, I'll be like, you know, oh, they're going to expect it to be maybe more than I can deliver on or whatever. But I think that, like, when you value your work, it's also, in some ways, it kind of like elevates it. Mm-hmm. Like, by saying I value it at this amount, it's like, what you might do the same thing. Like, the way I like to think about it is like, what's the price, like, that I would be really happy to work for?
Right.
Like, what's going to make me actually take this, like, super seriously and be, like, stoked on doing my best work?
Yeah.
And that number, it's like taken a while to get to. And like you said, there's a lot of people that you meet and you're like, dude, I'd do this for cheaper because I want to work with you, or this sounds like a cool project.
Right.
But if you pay me this rate, then I also get to feel super good about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's hard because a lot of times you want to work with somebody who's an artist and is just in the same position as you, and like but if they have the means to pay for it, like, you should, you know, they should.
Yeah.
But if they don't, it's like you kind of want to adjust. So I've come full circle on all of it. You know, it's like getting into the kind of scarcity mindset. Mm-hmm. Like back in the day, thinking like, you know, oh, I just need to make the money because that's all I need it. I need it now, and like I'm not going to get it some other way. But honestly, I think at this point it's better to just be in the mindset that there is abundance, like, all the time. And like ask for what you need and what you want, and sometimes you're just not going to get it because somebody's not going to be on the same wavelength, or it's not in their budget.
Yeah, and I think like the sliding scale approach too. It's like you might get work that's less inspiring but pays well, and then you can use that to subsidize passion projects, or like you were saying, if you're working with other artists who you're inspired by but maybe have limited means. Yeah, you know, like. There are those projects that are just, you're going to volunteer your time and your energy for because you believe in the project, and it's also can be like a great opportunity to do more of what you love. Mm-hmm. You know, like
totally.
We all need to build out our networks and make shit with people. Like I just think that's also just a win.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is. But I think like working for free can be kind of tough. I mean, just because it's just so much time that you put into something. Making like a record with somebody. Yeah. It's a lot of work that goes into that. So like just doing it for free, it's not really possible at this point in my life, at least.
Has your like perspective on what that means changed a lot since you started recording music? Like you're just coming out of like finishing a record, right?
Yeah.
Are you guys still in the middle of the process?
Well, Whiskerman is working on a record. Yeah. I mean, somehow all of us are doing that for free, basically. Like everybody in the band does it for free. I mean, we make money from shows sometimes, but like the actual record making, and it takes a lot of work to do it. At least for me, it does. I mean, I think like drums and bass, they come in and they knock it out in a couple days, and then that's it, you know. For sure. But for me, I spend a lot of time on these things and like do a bunch of overdubs, and we started working on it like right before the pandemic hit. And but I guess your question was like my perspective changed about
like what does it mean in your mind now, like versus like how long have you guys been together as a band?
We've been together for like 11 years or 12 years or so. I mean, different drummer, and we got the guitar player like a few years after starting, and then also Jeremy Lyon. We added him kind of later on, and we've had other people kind of come in and out. Trevor Bonson was with us for a while. He still plays with us sometimes. So now it's kind of become more of like a rotating cast of characters. But yeah, I mean, since we started, I think like, you know, our first record was done with Greg Ashley at this place. Ghost Town. It was like this warehouse in Oakland. Super dingy, like, you know, it's like recording in a dungeon, but it was fucking rad. And he had we did it all onto 1-inch tape. Awesome. So he was like a total analog dude. I think the only element that wasn't analog was when he mastered it on some old program that he had on his like super old computer. Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome to work on that one. So that one's like, I mean, all of that was done analog. So, and we did another record after that was analog as well, but also had some elements of digital because we did a Tiny Telephone, but then we bounced it down to Pro Tools, and that took a lot of work too. I mean, I think at this point, like, the reason I'm halting on the newest record right now is because of like lack of funds to finish it up, because I want to finish it. I think, like, in terms of where my mind has gone in the progression of the band is like, I want to go full out, like, put as much effort and time into it as possible to make it the best thing that it could possibly be, and then work with like the best people that I know to make it sound the best that it could possibly be.
Yeah.
And like, it takes some time to like find those people, and we found a lot of people that are local. That Ian Polici over at New Improved. I don't know if you've ever worked with him or know him, or.
I don't think so.
He's super rad.
Nice.
We've been working with him for years.
Is he an engineer or not?
Yeah, he's an engineer.
Cool.
He plays some guitar, I think, but he's mostly an engineer. He just gets amazing tones. He was working at Tiny Telephone for a long time. And he's just like gathered a bunch of gear over the years, and then he took over New Improved. They were doing analog completely at Tiny Telephone, and now he doesn't really do analog as much. Because he just feels that like it can be a hindrance to the process in some ways.
It's funny though, like just how much those limiting factors can influence and like can create like a level of innovation and a level of inspiration. Like one of the things I think, digital, the advent of digital technology gives us unlimited options of what we can do.
Yeah.
Sometimes unlimited options can be a little paralyzing when you're trying to create. So you hear all these stories of some of our favorite, like just classic albums or even films or whatever. And it's actually the story of overcoming some sort of limitation. Maybe there was something going on in studio or something going on with one of the members, or, that forced people to think creatively about how they were going to approach the making of the art. And then that ends up creating some beautifully unexpected innovation.
Yeah, I love the limitation of working analog and tape. Like, yeah. And like mixing that way actually is really cool too. So that's like what your brother's about to do. He's about to be mixing like analog like that. I think you can bring it into Pro Tools. Pro Tools, you can do literally anything. But then when you're mixing with the faders and then you're like throwing the effects through the faders and doing all that, it's like, it's really fun.
Yeah, I think he's really enamored by, he's had his little like, home studio Pro Tools rig for a while, but from what he's told me, like getting into the workflow of just turning knobs and dealing with an analog signal, and it's like kind of like a hot rod, and you're kind of like always working on it, always tweaking it. But I think for him, getting out of menu screens and out of that endless options and having to like record something into 8 tracks, and then that changes obviously what you're going to be able to do and how you're going to be able to do it. I think he's excited about that.
Yeah, for me, I've just like, I started off doing GarageBand, and then I started going into Logic, and like now I've had so many years under my belt. It's not like I'm an amazing engineer on Logic, and I just don't really have that kind of a mind in general of being an engineer. I'm sort of like more of an intuitive sort of renegade like mixer or anything. It's like I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just hearing it and hearing what sounds good.
Intuitive process.
The kind of intuitive process. Like I'm not somebody who can really explain the ins and outs of what's happening. Which probably lends itself more for analog. But if you treat like Logic or something like an analog equipment and not do too much crazy shit with it, then it works out.
It's a great program. Like I've done this whole podcast on GarageBand, and just because like it was easy to do, and like I really don't need to do too much with it as far as like plugins or anything like that. But I know my brother's also very enamored by the Logic, Logic's approach relative to Pro Tools. And it is nice to even, I also, one of the things I've also seen bands do who want kind of the best of both worlds is maybe you record into Logic or into like a DAW, but at some stage in the process you like print it to tape, just to put that tape fuzz on it or that warmth, or kind of run it through that filter.
Yeah, you kind of like bounce everything down onto, or the final mix, print it down to like a half inch. Mm-hmm. That's a like very common thing to do.
Give it that flavor. So you grew up here in Oakland, right?
Yeah.
What was your, take me through like how did the Graham Patzner music journey start? Like, is that part of your family?
Yeah, it's totally part of, I grew up in a musical family. My parents are musicians. Like, my dad plays bass trombone, and he taught it at a high school, taught music at a high school up at CPS. And then my mom is a violin player, and she played in the symphonies, the SF Ballet a lot. She was doing the Nutcracker all the time. She also is a really busy teacher, and she still teaches. She was telling me the other day, she's like, oh, I can't come on Sunday because I got, she's teaching from like 1 to 6 or something on a Sunday. And I'm like, why are you still doing this? Like, she's in the end of her, professional life basically, but she's just still going, which is great. I mean, I don't feel like you slow down doing music at all. I don't really have the teaching bug as much, but she loves it. So that was really helpful growing up because she teaches violin. So I started learning violin. I had a teacher. I've had teachers my whole life doing it.
Keep going. I'm just.
That's all good.
I want to do a little mic adjustment here.
Yeah.
Just to get you. It's kind of blocking your face.
Yeah. Yeah, I had violin teachers, but then also my mom would help me practice. So I'd like practice with her every night, which is kind of insane when you think about it, like how much work. I mean,
did you feel pressured?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's just insane, like how much that she dedicated to that.
Yeah.
Because I have a son now, and it's just like it's a lot of work to like be consistent and present to their practice of the instrument.
Yeah.
So, but and it's super important for kids. It's super helpful for kids to be learning music at a young age too. It's like so good for the development and brain.
Mm-hmm.
So like I started on piano, then I went to violin, then I did trumpet for a little while. I was pretty into trumpet, and then I kind of like during high school, I kind of stopped being as into. I was still playing trumpet in a ska band.
Nice.
I was playing trumpet in a ska band, played around here. I think that was when I really fell in love with like rock and roll and like playing at clubs.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be an all ages club, iMusicast, down on Telegraph.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like down, where the Well is on Telegraph now, and there's Skyline Studios there. Do you know Skyline Studios?
Is that like where Leo's used to be?
Yeah.
Was that same building? Because I know.
No, so Leo's took over. So Leo's is a club that took over Leo's Pro Audio, and then that changed. But it was like across that little parking lot. There's a spot called iMusicast.
Okay.
And it was run by Brian Matheson, who is at Skyline Studios, which is like right. He's still there.
Okay.
And it was like it was an all ages venue, which like. It doesn't really exist anymore around here. We don't have any all ages venues. Maybe the Gilman is the only one. I don't know if is the Gilman even still going.
I don't even know what that. I've never even heard of that.
The Gilman's like a punk venue. It's like a legendary punk venue in like Albany or Berkeley or
is Ashkenazi
off
all
Gilman,
ages?
Gilman Street. Ashkenaz, I think.
Ashkenaz, I mean.
Yeah, Ashkenaz is, I think.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that. I think it might not be.
I don't know. I've actually never been there. I've lived here 8 years, and I don't think I've ever been there.
You've never been to Ashkenaz?
Never been to Ashkenaz.
Oh, dude! If you haven't been to, if you've got to go to like a pure like fire reggae show.
Yeah, that's what. That would be the one.
Like I saw Israel Vibration there.
Oh, tight!
They were sick, and the scene was so dope.
So many dreadies, I'm sure.
Dude, it was It's the best. It's honestly, it's like, it's top.
A lot of red lions.
Hell yeah. Yeah, 100%. And you like reggae, I mean, right? I mean,
I love reggae, man.
And seeing reggae live is always great.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It makes me think me and my brother, when we were in our mid-20s, we had this live hip-hop, like funk project called The Optimistics. And our first drummer was this guy named Jeremy Gray. And he was like a, redhead, got really into reggae music. Now he's like a really dope reggae producer.
Nice.
And a really talented drummer. Like, he knows the genre really well.
Uh-huh.
And he goes by Red Lion. That's what we all called him. And like, so we just have this dream of like him and Jeremy Lyons working together in like a Red Lions, like reggae project. You know, you like hear your different friends and you're like, you want to like play matchmaker and be like, take some of that and add some of that. And, like, that's
awesome.
Like a King Lion dream or something like that.
Yeah. That would be amazing. Do you play? Do you and your brother play a lot together? Or?
We've been doing like the Backyard Boogies, which you've come to. That's like kind of been this project that for the last started during the pandemic. It's like very unofficial. Even to call it a project feels like over formalizing it. But like, me and my brother, like we're brothers, so obviously we have all the like, whatever sort of brother issues to work through when we play music, but we spend a lot of time
for sure
getting past the egos and all that.
I have two brothers, so
right?
Yeah, same.
You get it.
Same.
Some things are way easier, some things are way harder.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I was, playing keyboard for about 5 years, and we had that band. We played like all around the Bay, and it was fun. But like, piano was just always like a painful instrument for me. Like I took lessons when I was like 11 and I got the basics. My mom's a music teacher also. Like we have a musical family, but I always just felt way behind. Like I never was good enough. Never was like, it started too late. I felt like I didn't have the technical abilities to play the kind of music I wanted to play. Yeah. I really wanted to play organ. And like I kind of learned on stage. Like I got asked to join this band and I was like, I had my little thing I could do, but like I was not like a kind of classically trained player at all. So like, we were kind of like when we first started, it was like a reggae band that was playing hip hop behind this MC. And then I eventually like brought on some friends. I brought in my brother and like our songwriting. My brother's such a talented songwriter that our songs started to get, a little more structured, and he was coming out of jazz school. So he had like, these ideas. But I always kind of just felt like a little bit out of my element with the keys. And then probably like 5 or 6 years ago, I don't know if you ever heard about it, but Bo from the Honey Drops used to have these like river parties up on the Yuba.
Oh yeah.
And so I started going to those and really just was getting into like being an MC and singing and freestyling. And I was like, it was such like a big kind of moment because I was just becoming a huge fan of the Honey Drops. Uh-huh. And here I am getting to like play with Lorenzo and Bo and I started playing bass, because it's just like this open jam scene. And bass was my first instrument. I first picked it up in 7th grade, and I just started having so much fun on it.
Yeah.
And like I felt like my brain just knew what to do. Like when I would try to play keys, I never knew like what to do, like how to comp. It's always like kind of trying to like intellectualize what playing meant. Like I always felt like there was like a right way, and I couldn't really figure out what like my way was. Yeah. And when I picked up the bass, it was like, oh, I know what to do right now. Like, I know what to play here. Yeah. I'm hearing something and I can just not worry about whether it's like in fashion to play that lick or whether it's corny or, I can just like trust my ear and trust what's in my heart. And So we started having these jams at that river party, and they were like some of like just the fattest, like starting the jam and there's nobody in the room.
Yeah.
And suddenly you have like 40 people that you like Pied Pipered into the room. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like, and getting that feeling was so good. It got me super excited.
Yeah.
So this is a super long story for a short question, but over the last couple years, like me and my brother going to all these different jams in the East Bay, we felt like there was always this dynamic of like either it was like super loose and just drunk people screaming into the mic and like not very fun, or it was like super uptight and competitive and like there's 3 guitar players tapping their feet waiting for their turn to get a song. And it's like this kind of like stuffy jazz bro vibe.
Yeah.
And we were like, we want to like make a space where it's like still a high level of like output, like the quality of the music is good.
Yeah.
But it's not like a hierarchy.
Right.
And like the girl that likes to sing but like has never done it on stage can come up and like have a sick band give her a chant. Like she'll get an opportunity to like experience what, being in that party vibe and having like some really dope music to sing over, or enter in any musician into that thing. So that's kind of like playing wise. I feel like, and again, I'm no like Jocko, prodigy bass guy, but I like know what I like and I can
you got a
play
great
my part.
feel too.
Thanks,
and like
man.
you and your brother together are sick too.
Yeah,
it's a cool vibe you guys bring. I mean, when we were jamming at that party at
Dude,
Dobbs,
that was epic.
it was super fun.
That's so much fun.
It was super fun. I had an amazing time.
Yeah, and that's what I like about playing with you too, is like I feel like you are one of those players that every now and then you come across them like people where like you're very talented and you know how to write the music that you love and that you hear. But I also feel like you're the type of person I can go into a jam with and like there's not really a wrong direction. Like if I get weird, I have a feeling like you're going to be down to explore that.
Yeah, for sure.
We can go in whatever direction it takes.
I mean, I think the more freedom that you can have is the best, right?
Yeah.
For jams. I kind of love the Bay actually. It seems actually, after the pandemic, it kind of seems like people are just so much more hungry for music, and there's this culture around jamming that's like really kind of getting really cool these days. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of different styles of music happening, and part of one thing I'm really thinking about is like just doing more recording and doing like really highlighting what's happening around here and get people to like create more content rather than, just going and doing the jam and then that's it.
Right.
Sometimes recording the jams, just getting together and like, I mean, I feel like when we were jamming at that one thing, there was like an album's worth of songs that probably came up,
Dude,
and like
I would have listened to that shit after the fact.
So that's kind of with my new spot. I want to do that. I'm going to be doing more of that kind of stuff, and
it's fun. Like I feel like one of the things we've been doing in these spaces that is like some of my favorite type of music to play. It's like, a lot of them are like really like kind of simple 1 or 2 chord jams. And me and Tony, we have been doing like, we call them lessons. He's been like giving me lessons, but we also in that space, we'll like we've been trying to write these like grooves that are simple enough to pick up. So, it's not like 6 chord changes with a pre-chorus and something that you can start up on stage with people.
For sure.
And people are going to be able to pick it up. But it's like a little bit more, like the song does still kind of go somewhere. It's like that balance. So like you're not just hanging on one chord the whole time. And, but there's like this intention, and Lorenzo is a player that I feel like he can lock in with us on this, and it gets really fun where we almost will like start a groove and just sit in it for like 5 minutes. Yeah. And like some people you start to see, they get a little like antsy, like, okay, what are we doing here? But it's almost like we stay in the pocket And it eventually like just gets to that sweet zone where suddenly like whatever little changes you're making intuitively, it suddenly is like, oh shit, this is the shit.
Totally.
Like, you're playing the same notes, but they suddenly like mean something different. It's almost like a warming up process or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever experienced.
Oh, absolutely. Like yeah. We have Lorenzo all day.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That dude's got the like musical stamina of no one I've ever met.
Yeah. He just lives and breathes it like all day, all night. It's just, he never stops.
Yeah.
It's great. It's really inspiring. It's always great to hang out with him and be in that space. Cause he's also, he just wants the jam to go. You know, he wants music to be around and people to be having fun. And he just brings joy to the whole thing. And he's fucking good at it. Yeah. All those guys are great at it.
It's always amazes me how much those boys can like play a 3-hour show and then go right to the after party and play another 4 hours. And like, maybe they won't even like double a song. You know, those guys know so many songs. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, and that's fun. I think they enjoy, you know, the Honey Drops guys like enjoy the space too, because they can come in and it's not like they don't have to be like representing like it's not like a Honey Drops show.
Right.
It's like Lesh can come and he doesn't have to like feel responsible for carrying. He can come up and play, come out. He doesn't have to like be, you know, like there's almost like a stewardship in like carrying the jam.
Totally.
If you're going to be in like a leadership position with it or whatever. And so, you know, trying to kind of create that like democratization of the groove.
Yeah.
And still like, you know, I still look to my brother to like I love giving Tony the space to kind of be this like benevolent dictator sometimes of like making calls, you know, but he does it in a way that's like very gentle and, you know, it still helps to have someone who's like, well, I got this little thing, you know, and then everyone can kind of build around it.
Totally.
You know, what age were you, like, how did Whiskerman come about?
Whiskerman came about, I was just doing, so like, I went to acting school for college.
Really?
Yeah. So in high school, I started getting really into theater.
Okay.
And I've always really loved movies and film. You know, I've always loved that. And I just started getting really into theater. We had a really good theater program at my school.
Where'd you go?
Bishop O'Dowd in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really good theater program. The plays, like, we did some really amazing plays, like the Laramie Project. I don't know if you know what that is.
We did that in my high school too.
Yeah. And we got, like, protested by Fred Phelps, who was, like, part of the Westboro Baptist Church.
Oh, shit,
and
really?
They came around, they went around the country, like, protesting, like, Catholic schools that were doing, or maybe it was any schools that were doing that play. And so that, like, kind of brought this, like, weight to, like, how powerful theater can be and how...
Yeah. Keep going. I'm listening. I just... Check this. Okay, we're still doing that.
Oh, yeah, you just can't really see it, huh? So yeah, I started getting really into it, and then we did. I went to school in New Jersey for acting, and I did like 2 years. So it was a super intense acting conservatory.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like way too intense for somebody coming straight out of high school. Like, right? I can't believe I did it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just grueling. Like the second year, I mean, I would go to school from like 8 a.m. until like midnight, just like back-to-back classes, all this shit. It's like, why? Like, this isn't really is this really how real life is? Like, you're trying to model how life is for people in the acting world. It's like, no, it's not. Like, you're gonna go to like one audition a week or something, and then the rest of the time maybe you're gonna be waiting tables or like, you know, figuring out how you're making money, but you're not gonna be like grinding like day in and day out. So it's like, it was just crazy. So I dropped out of school. Was
it more of like a theater program, or like were you doing actual screen acting?
Yeah,
as well?
It was mostly theater. I mean, it started off doing this technique, the Meisner Technique, which is like it's method acting basically, but it's like there's a whole form to the whole thing. It's really like pretty pretty deep method of doing things.
Do you have any stories about like getting into a method character? Did you do any of that type of?
I mean, the thing about it was that like we didn't, and this was kind of, you know, it's kind of sad. Like we didn't do really any plays like for the first 2 years. The whole philosophy of the Meisner Technique was that you like break down your personality, you break down your identity into like something that's sort of moldable, so that you can figure out who you are, kind of, and then, you know, let go of these things that we do to sort of they're sort of like hide us from our vulnerability, basically.
Defenses.
So yeah, defenses, different mechanisms that we use, behaviors that we have.
It's like a psychological rewiring.
Yeah, so it's like a psychological rewiring. That's sort of the point, and that's like when you're in this space of like doing the technique, you're like you're breaking down barriers within yourself and like connecting to what is the moment is always, you know, like what is the truthful, authentic moment, and so.
Was there a lot of traumatized people in your cohort? I feel like I could see that attracting, like, you know, some people that maybe that's their like healing or their medicine is to go do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think people I saw, I mean, you know, people in my class that would just like reveal really deep things about their lives and traumas from their lives. It was like therapy. And I think for me, it sort of like was the beginning of sort of a spiritual healing path. Because we do a lot of yoga and did a lot of breath work stuff, movement, exercises, and all these things. And then just the actual technique was like really like psychoanalysis. So since that, I've definitely, I started like on a more spiritual path from there.
Cool.
But I think that was sort of the purpose of me going to it. It wasn't necessarily to like be, even though I love acting and I would do more acting. I felt I started to get really turned off by like just the whole industry and the way that they were kind of grooming things and grooming people.
It's funny how the culture, especially in the Bay, there's such a revulsion to that culture up here, I think. Mm-hmm. And because I was an actor in high school as well.
Oh yeah.
It's like, it's still something I want to do more of in my life because it's so fun to like play characters.
Yeah.
But I found like throughout my childhood, like there was almost this like deep cultural stigma in the Bay towards like trying to pursue, that as a career, show business, like act Hollywood, like, and I think, right, like, there's a lot of truth behind the critique.
Yeah.
But I think it sometimes can be a little out of balance to where it's like, how dare you dream to do anything in this space? Or I don't know if you experienced any of that, but like in my like adult life now, I'm finding like that's actually something I really enjoy. You know, as deeply as like getting to play characters and do, dramatic, expressions and stuff like that.
No, totally. I mean, I love it too. And I mean, I've also found like a good outlet to like combine music with the theater, or just, it's just kind of just being me. Mm-hmm. But being on stage is like being able to express something that is all of the things for me. Yeah. And songwriting, it's being an artist, just being an artist in general.
Was there an
event? I think it was kind of limiting, like acting was limiting.
Okay.
Especially this school, because it was like they're training you to be an actor. You're not going to be a performance artist, or you're going to go on auditions, and then like thinking about going on auditions like all the time and not having like that being the path for me. It just wasn't the path. I'm not supposed to do that. Like I need to be doing music, and I feel much more alive in the reality that I'm in at this point. Like,
were you still being playing able to at create, that time?
I would play a little bit. I was definitely playing music, and I would like steal away and go and write songs in the like music department place, and go like find a practice room and like
your dirty little secret.
It was kind of it was an interesting time. I feel like more, especially being in a different, like moving to New Jersey and going to school. Like I had a lot more solitude in that time because I grew up here. I'm around like friends from high school. I know so many people at this point here. I've been here forever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like any day there could be something going on. And I feel like then I was like, I had a lot more solitude and quiet time to myself when I was working, which is cool. And I think you need that as an artist when you're developing, especially as a younger artist.
For sure.
For sure.
Was there like a singular event or some moment that caused you to leave, or was it just like a kind of
so they asked me to take a year off because they were like noticing that, I mean, like I would show up late to a lot of the morning classes, and I think just in general I was just kind of like, it was so demanding that it was just I was getting into a weird headspace about all of it. And so they were like, take a year off and see how you feel. And then during that year off, I started like writing more songs. I started doing other things, hanging out with people who were kind of more on my wavelength, like with music and poetry. I met some dear friends that are like really close with, and
we would just like Jersey, hang out. Did you
no, I came back here in Berkeley.
Okay.
I started going to the community college, and I met like these two brothers that were like Ecuadorian brothers, Kike and Felipe, and we would go to their house and just drink and read poetry and play songs. And I started getting really into like Bob Dylan, and it was like I was studying songwriting. I was like coming into this bohemian, like new bohemian, renaissance. And I was studying songwriting, like Johnny, little Johnny Cash, but no, Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen were like the two ones that I would like started to get into because I was doing poetry, and I still do love poetry, and so I just started doing that, and then eventually started getting a band together. Started out with some people that weren't great. I was playing with Lewis for a while. Lewis was in the band. Lewis is my brother.
Okay.
He plays cello. And we started a project, and then it just became Whiskerman. I think the name Whiskerman, I wrote a song called Whiskerman, and then I was like, let's just name the band Whiskerman. It was kind of high, probably.
Yeah,
it's totally. But it was just about like a sort of messiah figure, coming back at the end of the world and bringing fun and light and healing, and I just kind of felt like it was a sort of crunchy band name that kind of made sense, but it was also kind of mystical and weird and strange. And
I mean, as an observer of, and I've seen your band, quite a few times now, like, and now hearing you tell this story, like, it makes so much sense. Like I see you coming back with having done this intensive time in a performing arts situation. You come back, to me, like Whiskerman's like your alter ego, it's kind of like the character you assume on stage, who's still fully Graham, but you've almost built this container to allow yourself to, to play this cool, creative role of this character that's like, you're like spiritually connected to. And
I think it's also like developed more into that role over the years. And it still evolves. I mean, it's always evolving, that the character that Whiskerman is. And it's like the band starts to take on that persona too. And it like, cause it started off like more like kind of rootsy folk kind of, sort of like atmospheric somewhat, if you listen to the first record, there's some of those elements, but then it kind of took on more of like a rock and roll persona, and now it's like full kind of psychedelic rock and roll. And then now we're kind of coming back around and doing just like our next album is like Americana with still all the elements of everything. It's like kind of, we have this new album that could actually honestly be our last, just because of the way that things have been going, and I'm like interested in so many different things musically that it's like it's okay to sort of
the forces that pull things in different directions.
But I mean, it's kind of like an all-encompassing album that has it's like Americana, and has some of the like rock and roll, like kind of heavy rock and roll, driving rock and roll stuff, and some folk elements.
Did you have that feeling when you were recording it, when you've been working on it? Does it feel like it's like the end of an era or the end of a project?
It felt like when we recorded it February of 2020, so it was like, the month before everything changed.
Right.
It felt like honestly, it did. I didn't go into it thinking like this is going to be the end. I felt like I was like, let's do this thing that encompasses everything that we do. And it felt like that's what the songs were that were being brought to the table. There was a lot of old songs that I brought to the table. And it just felt like, okay, yeah, this is like a nice, like, career moment statement of like, this is what we do, and what we've done, where we've come from and where we're going. But then I think, once the pandemic hit, I mean, we put out a record on March 6th and the pandemic hit, and it was just like, oh, well, we can't even do any of the things
right.
that we were just about to do. Like, we were about to be on all these festivals, do a bunch of touring of the record, and like...
That was Kingdom Illusion?
Yeah, Kingdom Illusion. And it was just like, we spent a lot of time on that record. We spent years on it and sat on it for like a year or two.
Wow.
Because we were trying to like see if we could push it and get people interested in it. And it was just like, just nothing happened. And I think you can just it kind of just feels like you can only go so far without like anything happening for the music and keep doing that for so long until you're like, it's kind of like, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard on the morale.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the hope, right, is that it becomes a perpetual motion machine, right? Where you push and you push, you're kind of like pushing the cart up the hill.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to coast a little bit at some point where you're feeling like whoever it is, people, society, your community is like starts pulling you along as well.
Yeah. Instead, it's kind of like the myth of Sisyphus where the guy, you're just going up the hill with the boulder, and then like the pandemic hit, and it's just like the whole thing fucking went all the way down the hill.
Right.
And like, because we were like, we had a lot of momentum. We had a lot of like, I was also, it's a long process to like get a band going.
Yeah.
And like getting into all the markets, you got to keep going and hammering it like consistently. You got to keep going back to the places that you go to play, and just keep that moving. And I think like not having an entire year of doing that, and I guess now it's 2 years basically. I mean, we did a little touring at the end of this year, right before Omicron hit, which is now is like, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you, brother.
It's hard, man. It's hard for any band, and like
sure.
A band that just like it felt like we were just starting to kind of get more momentum, and it was rough. And so like we're losing our drummer is moving away to Dan Schwartz is moving away to New York.
I was talking to him about it at Matt's birthday, and just trying to connect and hear what he was saying, and that's a big shift, huh?
Yeah, it's a big shift. It's a loss.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not even just about losing a drummer. It's like losing a brother, like in the scene.
Totally.
For everybody, really.
Yeah.
It's like he's been so great for everybody, and
he's got such a like a Bonham-esque style too. It's like how many drummers can do that like tasteful rock thing without like he doesn't play too much. Like I feel like every time I've seen him, I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's what belongs there. Like that fill or that pocket. I've always been super impressed with how he can cover the genres and like really, not stick out, but like hold everything together.
Yeah, he's amazing. Like he's kind of like the perfect drummer for the band in so many ways, because he's got the chops to do all of it. He's got the chops for all of it, and he brings his own style to it, and he's kind of like he's kind of wild.
He's a wild man.
He's a wild man, and like he'll fucking take it to the edge and like kind of fuck things up, which is cool, and it's good for the music because it gives that intensity and like makes it wild.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard to find people like that. Man, I don't even know really anybody who's like him really around the Bay right now, at least.
Right.
Because you got a lot of drummers who are like, you know, funk, jazz vibe, and that's cool too. But it's like you need to have like the rock chops.
Yeah.
But you can't have too much of just the rock chops. It needs to be like a full on spectrum of drumming, and that's why Dan was so perfect.
Right. He
is perfect.
I feel like it. Yeah, like a band is like in a lot of ways as good as its drummer. You know, like other instruments, you know, can have some slack, but like if you go and hear a band and the drummer isn't right, like
I know.
the band just sounds like shit.
Yeah,
you're not like, oh, the drummer sucks. It's like this band sucks or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how I've experienced it, having been on both sides of the stage with it. You know.
Yeah.
Where it's like if your drummer isn't tight, the best you can be is like. Okay.
Yeah.
Or good, you know?
It's true.
But.
Well, also, you know, the other thing about being in a band, I mean, and this is like the Honey Drops, like they are playing together all the time.
Right.
And just like they're like a big family and they're doing it all the time. And like the thing with us is like we just haven't been doing it enough. And so like it affects the overall sort of momentum and sound as well as the sound, you know? Because when you're really like in it with people all the time and you're like meeting every week and doing something, you really start to get some momentum and like you get the energy going.
It's hard when that arc, I feel like there's this like arc with bands where in the beginning, like you're super excited to meet and create. You get together, we're gonna, you know, we got rehearsal, we're gonna go like write new music, and you know, like it's like kind of this really yummy creative zone. And I think a lot of bands, and I think you guys definitely push past this, but like you can get into this dynamic where you're like only rehearsing for the show, you're playing the same set list. It's like people stop prioritizing like the band time. You know, like, well, I can do Tuesday, Thursday, and then the other guy's like, well, I can only do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Yeah. And then like, okay, can we all agree on Saturday? Oh no, Saturday I got to drive out to the beach, or you know, and you're like, well, do we want to play music? Come on, guys.
Yeah, and then you get into that. Like, there's always one guy who wants to like. He's like, well, I want to fucking do it.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You know,
totally.
I know it's tough.
So it's hard not to, you know, especially when there are people that are putting more of the organizational effort into it.
Yeah,
it's hard not to like take it personally when you see that dynamic's like not necessarily reflected from everybody, or you know, it's not like pointing fingers. It's like being in a band is like dating 5 people at the same time, right?
Totally. Yeah,
and making love in public, you know.
Yeah.
So.
And I guess for me, it's just I mean, it got to. I was in that headspace like at the end of because we were just about to go on tour, and you know, people were out of town, and it's just like, so are we going to, we have a big show coming up, and then we have people are out of town. Mm-hmm. And then the funny thing about it is like our bass player, Will, got COVID like right before we were going to play at the Independent.
Oh shit.
So we had to get a sub anyway. So it's like, and so, you know, people can jump in like that. Ben Barry, we got Ben Barry, who's, you know, the bass player of Mario O'Reilly in the old Soul Orchestra.
Oh, nice.
And he killed it, you know. So there's people out there that are just killers, you know, that can just slay it, and it'll still be good. It's like, but
there's like that process of you kind of got to let go of what, you know, it's like this balance, right? Because on one hand, the only reason that you have this cool thing, right, is that you've willed this into existence through your vision. Yeah. Right. Like Graham in his mind, you have like what Whiskerman is in your head. Right. And there's a lot of truth there. Like, like that's served you well fighting that vision or following that vision. Right. And then there's the world, right? And then forces can come in and tease it out and pull. And I think part of being like this kind of frontman leader type is being able to have enough of the focus of like believing in your vision and still being able to like flex a little bit and allow for this, this bottled lightning that you have to like
right.
be directed in new directions as needed. Right. 'Cause
right.
nobody wants to be the tyrant,
yeah.
but you need a little bit of tyrant.
Totally. Yeah.
So,
I know. Exactly. I mean, it can get you, and that's what I've noticed too, because it can get you into a if you zero in on something being a certain way and just like, this is how it's going to be, you turn into an asshole. Totally. And like, I've gotten to that space so many times, like, in like a band dynamic, it's hard not to really. Sure. You're like, no, like we need to be getting here at this time, and But now I'm sort of I mean, in a lot of ways, the pandemic too for people, it's like we're all getting used to just things not going the way that we want them to go.
Yep.
That's okay. It's okay. You just kind of pivot, and that's what I did during the pandemic. I pivoted to doing more production work and recording more, and it looks like somebody I know. It's not though. Recording more, and I invested into a bunch of recording gear and shit, and started producing people, and
tight.
I found a lot of joy in that too. Like, it's almost like it's using a different part of my creative brain.
Yeah,
and
you're getting to be like, it's almost like you were like this hotshot NBA player, and now you're getting to be a coach of a successful team.
Yeah.
Like it's the Patzner method has been established because you've done all this work,
right?
Like in your community of being known as like a creative who makes good shit.
Yeah.
People, will trust your vision.
Right.
When you make a call in the studio, I think if you're untested, and this is kind of where my brother is right now, like all of his friends are like, dude, you got to put your album out, man. Like, and he is in his own slow way.
Yeah, totally.
He's dealing with all the emotions of a first release.
For sure.
But the idea is like, man, like you're an unknown quantity until you have some published work, no matter what you're doing. Right.
Right.
But I have this feeling like once he gets his music out, because he wants to produce, I'm like, well, you got to have something out there that people can listen to and be like, oh, that, like, I want some of that magic to help influence my project. I totally know he can do it 100% because he has, like yourself, he's one of these creatives that has developed their craft to where they can trust in their own ideas and the merit of their own ideas. Right. But I think it does take, figuring out a way to share with your community.
Yeah.
So that people, because musicians are like the worst self-promoters, right? Like it's not always easy to communicate in words with people. Like, what do I do? Or what am I? What's my definition as an artist?
That's the thing. I think it's an issue up here because like nobody does that. But if you go down to LA,
right,
everybody's got a pitch.
That's a good point.
Everybody in LA has got a pitch.
Yeah.
It's you're just meeting. Like I've had that with like so many different people to like. They say their entire philosophy of what they think music is and how they do it. It's like they've written it all out. Right. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a good point. Do you find it matches what their music actually sounds like?
I mean, I find it to be pretentious and like not like it's like I don't know if I want to work with this guy because they gotta have a pitch. But you can find some people that are super cool down in LA that are not going to be like that. But
we like to knock on them, but yeah.
I mean, the cool thing about LA is that everybody's doing art and everybody's in the industry or everybody's trying to make it happen. And, the downside of that is that people are just trying to do that. So they're just going to burn through you if they'll use you and
Yeah. But I do love the idea of a city where like aiming for the clouds is accepted and celebrated.
Yeah.
And that, of course, comes with like all this disgusting fluff, right?
Yeah.
But like, it's also, it's so cool. That's one of the things I love going down there.
Yeah.
Is you do talk about your ideas and everyone's like, yeah, duh. Like try for it.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
We're all trying to do
Everybody's
something cool.
doing it. Yeah.
And I think up here, and this is kind of what I was referencing earlier, but like there is like this almost like, how dare you try vibe. I don't know if you ever encountered that, but it's like, oh, you're trying too hard, or like, oh, you're like, there is almost like this resistance towards being like a known public artist or gaining, maybe not fame, but like notoriety or some form of like that somehow is not to be trusted. The desire to be known for your creative output.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things in music too with people who are like, oh, they just they get into that space where they're like, oh, that's not cool. Like the cool thing is to be like you don't care about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And
if you want to be the real deal.
Yeah, the real deal is the guy who's not making any money, who's like playing for like nobody. And
totally, exactly.
It's like what? Like
no, the real deal. Yeah, can't get his shit together and is still at the dive bar and dealing with a couple addictions and
right. Yeah, but I mean, come on. Yeah, it's
that's real deal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are problems with the Bay scene. One of them also being just like. Everybody's in tech. It's like the focus is not on music. The focus is, and then when we're doing like, it's just ridiculous sometimes. Some of the best gigs that we do, the best paying gigs, are at like I did this one gig at Airbnb, and it was like you go into like the Airbnb office building, and there was like a huge auditorium, and we're like, wow, this is sick. And they're like, okay, but you're in the cafeteria in the corner for after we do the keynote speakers, doing PowerPoint presentations, and it's like now the music is going to be in the side, like an afterthought, like as quiet as possible. Like,
this is not for you. Yeah.
But I'm getting paid like everybody in the band is getting like $1,000.
Right.
So it's like, and like, when do you have a gig like that it's at a cool place in the like we're at a cool place? Mm-hmm. No, it's like there's not enough money there.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's. You're a product of this Bay like I am. You can remember when the Bay Area was like a gritty artist hive. I was talking about that yesterday, just about San Francisco and what happened to it over the last decade. And just remember growing up, and it was such a cool city. Yeah, it was like so like alive. It was so rife with culture, and there were so many cool people.
Yeah.
And I remember I lived in the city for 3 years, kind of right at the turn, 2009 through 2012, when it was like just starting to change. And now I go out there and I just get mad. I just actively hate people, and I'll be driving around and like, I hate that guy. I don't know you, but I hate you, and then I get back over to this side of the bridge and I'm like, okay, I can relax. Like,
yeah, the East Bay has definitely got the vibe these days. I'm actually excited about the East Bay now.
Yeah, like
there's something happening. I think that it's kind of exciting. Mm-hmm. I think there's a good scene of music emerging in the East Bay. I don't know, San Francisco. No,
yeah.
There's some people that are like eternal that are going to be in San Francisco, like Joe Louis on the bass. The bass player Joe Louis. He's like a San Francisco staple, dude.
Okay.
He's been around forever.
Yeah.
But there's certain people that are going to still like...
Yeah. There's
like
the diehards.
Hold it down, the diehards. But it's rough. It's kind of rough out there. The East Bay's got the scene happening. I think there's a lot of good music emerging here.
What do you think we need out here to evolve this? Like what's missing?
I was talking about this with Kevin Najika.
Yeah.
The other night, that I think we need to do more recorded music.
Okay.
Because like in LA, you got all the like jazz cats, or in New York. I mean, a lot of these people have records and they record and they're playing with each other, and you just kind of start a scene. And I think there needs to be like a good label that comes out of here that has a lot of money. and that puts out like really interesting stuff, and it doesn't have to be like there can have some interesting like experimental stuff, and there can also be some like more straightforward like stuff that maybe will sell.
We almost need like a crypto billionaire patron.
They're here. That's the thing.
Right.
We need to just harness these people and do something really cool, because like. I think that's kind of needed, and I think like if you have these people in jams that get together, and if these people are able to like do this more, and and maybe get some money from a label or something and are able to like make some albums and make some content and be supported,
mm-hmm.
then it'll help support the whole scene, you know?
Yeah, like I'm picturing this heroic figure, you know, who's doesn't need to really worry about the financial aspect of it, but it wants the clout of like being the head of this musical entity.
Yeah.
Right? Where, dude, and if you're listening, crypto billionaires out there, there's an open position. You'll get to be the man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's got to reach out to me and after this and be like, I want to be the one.
Yeah. You get to hang out with all the artists. You'll be honored. You'll be part of the scene that will be your legacy for history as being like kind of the godfather of this new Oakland era that all the artists are so hungry for. Like, because I do think that there is so much untapped potential out here for
so there's so much potential, right? And like it can be we can lift each other up. It's just like it's just a matter of time and somebody just being like, I want to put the money forward to make it happen.
Yeah,
because there's so many.
It's not even that much money either.
It really doesn't have to be that much money. It doesn't, but it would help. I mean, it would be really cool. It
could be a self-perpetuating type of thing too, where, you know, it's really it's more of like a startup cost, because I do think that there is enough talent and quality of aesthetic out here to where like the Oakland sound is something that people would be attracted to. Right. You know, on a national or international level, you know? Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, I mean, it's just like, you know, your brother starting his own little studio. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people doing that. And it's like recording costs don't need to be astronomical. No. Unless you want to get people into like, and there's a lot of studios around here, mm-hmm. like really professional studios that are amazing. And they're not even that expensive. When you think about it, like what they're offering, it's like, it's great. You know? So I don't know. Have you ever been to Bird and Egg Studios in Richmond?
No.
You should go there sometime. It's great. Nina Moschella. He's amazing. You'd love the vibe in there. He's got a great B3 in there. Oh, yeah. Like nice piano, big live room.
Nice.
Yeah. It's super dope.
That's what's up. Yeah, and I think like that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this show, and with like a lot of like my brand that I'm trying to build here, you know, that's keeping me in Oakland now. It's like, I want to be a part of that, you know, like an element of that, what you just described. Yeah. As far as like, I want people to be able to discover artists. Like, I'm trying to build this platform up so that I can have artists on, so that people can discover them. You know what I mean? Like, there's like this curation aspect of it, you know, because I know that like as I continue to develop my business, like one of the goals of the role I'm trying to do is to be able to be that bridge between the money and the artists, where like, you know, like for my videography, like I don't really ever want to use a sound bank for music. I want to have it written into my budget that I'm going to hire one of my amazing musician friends and pay them their rate. Right. And that's written into the budget so that so that my videos are known to have like good music, because that's everything in film. As you know, like music is like the emotional story of the film. Yeah. You know, so like I don't want to go hire some, you know, buy some sound bank soulless corporate music track to put on one of my even if I'm doing it for a business.
It's just like, and like the other thing, you know, it's like it really kind of bums me out when you see all these trailers and they're like they just use really popular songs in the trailers for movies, and in the movies they're just, so it's like you're just giving more money to these artists that basically don't need the money or are fucking dead. Mm-hmm. And like that, putting like, say, a Whiskerman song in a movie trailer, like for a big budget movie or in like a TV show, it like that would change our career. Right. It changes like bands' careers, and like people are still, you know, just choosing like David Bowie song. Right. life on Mars or something, you know.
I'm sure there's a political element to it as well, you know, but I use that word like meaning like just the politics of Hollywood, like, you know, because there are also those examples of like, oh, it's my nephew's band, you know, they're an LA band and they're going to get that song in, but you know, that's
a lot of what happens in LA. Well, I guess in regards to like them putting a really popular song on there, it's just so that people recognize it and so that they have something to latch on to.
Totally,
you know,
familiarity.
But
that's one thing I think like the Addams brothers are kind of doing though. You know, like that's what I see. Jesse and Gabe. You know, Jesse's moving down to LA. And
oh, really?
Yeah, that they're going to be like a block away from each other, and I think that they're both looking to continue to make films and continue to make visual art, and to put their friends' music in it. You know, like
that's cool. Yeah.
You know, did you see their movie? Did you see Up the Five?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's pretty cool. It's a cool, like they did it. It's a beautiful looking film, and it
is it on a Prime or something?
It's on Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Up the Five,
and they have Marty O'Reilly featured on it,
nice.
As well as like a few other Bay Area bands, and I think that like that's part of, like, you know, I see Jesse focusing a lot of his energy on Jale, like promoting, you know, his fiance's music and her art.
That's cool.
And I see like they're kind of, this is like all Hobart conjecture. This isn't necessarily what's been told to me, but
is that band that they're Royal Jelly Jive? Are they still a band, or are they done? Or
I think they're in like a similar position that you just described, where they're like maybe are having in the middle of some roster changes or trying to like figure out what those forces are going to do to the future. And I know that they're still like, I think they are still playing gigs, but I think one of the things Jesse has communicated to me is that like he's really inspired by Lauren's music and trying to like, you know, promote her further as like a solo artist as well. I don't know if that what that means for Royal Jelly, but I know that like
that's cool.
Her style, you know, the type of music, like her way of singing to me seems like it would be very commercially successful, and like I could see like a Hollywood filmmaker hearing that, and then Jesse's aesthetic totally lends itself to film. I mean, he understands film.
Yeah, Royal Jelly Jive is somewhat limiting in like where it can go, because it's kind of like party, sort of old time ish kind of like, you know, it's like New Orleans-y kind of vibe. But her voice is like, it could probably go anywhere, right? Yeah,
she's definitely got more. I think she embraces the pop element a little bit more, and kind of has that timbre to her voice, or that style of singing that is, you know, that I could hear in that context.
I remember seeing her. It was like one of the first times that she was playing at Amnesia.
Okay.
And it was years ago, and I was like, this is my favorite singer in the Bay
now.
Yeah. She's a fucking amazing singer. Mm-hmm. She's got such a cool style.
Totally. I remember seeing her, maybe it was with you. It was at like my first bodega day, and she did like this just ripping set on the deck.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, who is this girl? She's got like so much fire, you know. She was did some minor blues song or something. Yeah. And I was just like shredding it.
Yeah.
But I'm so inspired. I'm inspired by those guys, like the Addams Bros. It's so cool to see. Yeah. So cool to see. I actually kind of got to wrap up.
Yeah, we should probably wrap it up pretty soon.
But yeah, just it's cool to see like these guys that really, like, you know, like knowing their parents and who their parents are and how supportive their parents are. Like Jesse and Gabe, like really, I think so many of us artists at certain points in our life have kind of been hurt. Like I know I have, and like had to push through, like not feeling like I'm good enough, or not feeling like my creativity is valid, or, you know, like it's like sometimes can limit how honest I can be. Mm-hmm. And like getting back to that place of honesty is like where the work is.
Totally.
And I see like Jesse and Gabe just not even having that like scar to push through. Like you see Jesse go on stage and he's just, I'm fucking Jesse Adams. I'm going to take my keyboard off the stand and, you know, I'm going to just be myself and be this goofy, you know, fantastical character. And I love that. It's so beautiful to see. And Gabe is the same way. I mean, he's made a fucking movie. How many people can say that?
Yeah.
But,
awesome.
But yeah, dude, I think, I feel like this is like the first half of a conversation.
I know. It feels that way. We should do another one.
We should definitely do another one. And I'm really glad that you came on. I've been wanting to get you on, I think, for like a year now. And just, I'm excited about the next chapters for Graham and for Whiskerman. And
yeah, me too.
Dude, let's grow this. Man. Let's make this project happen. Yeah, let's make.
Yeah, we could meet up again anytime and do another half of this.
Hell
it's great
brother.
talking to you, brother.
For sure. Yeah. And
we're probably here for like 2 hours, huh? Almost 5.
Yeah, something like that. Probably like. Yeah, my computer's giving me the beach ball, but yeah, dude, thank you so much for coming on. To be continued. And can you really quick, just at the end, can you just tell people how they can like find your music and your art?
You can find Whiskerman at whiskerman.com or Instagram Whiskerman, or Graham Patzner, Graham Patzner. You can find me on I have an album on all of the platforms that you can hear, and Bandcamp has some other like exclusive content.
Oh yeah. Is there any shows or anything you want to promote? This will probably be out in like
when is this going to come out?
Probably release it next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's Whiskerman's doing 3 nights in Reno at the Peppermill Casino.
Tight. Hell yeah.
So come on out to that.
What are those dates?
February 3rd to 5th.
Okay. Hell yeah.
That's
right
gonna be
on,
super
man.
Fun.
That sounds tight.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
all right,
until the next one, bro.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
All right.